Back, everybody, the Rainbow Six North American League. Doe, your host here, along with Jesse Chick and Caliber Jacob, our two epic analysts. As we look ahead to game number 4, it's going to be DarkZero versus Soniqs. But before we start talking about that, let's talk about the day so far. Let's give you an update on not just that, but the standings in general. Let's see what the results have been. Because again, there's only 5 weeks of play, so the results matter. Every game is so important, and man, we had some close ones today. Parabellum getting the win over Xset, 8-7 in overtime. Then Beast Coast getting the surprise win over Space Station Gaming, 7-4, and then another overtime game. We've had so many of those these last 2 weeks already. 3 days of playing, I think we've had like, what, 3 or 4? Already go the distance. This time it was Oxygen edging it out over TSM, right? It's great, right? So now going into DarkZero versus Soniqs. Soniqs hunting for a win. They haven't gotten one yet. They are not really looking that much better than we saw in stage 1. Maybe a little bit of progress, but still not enough to get the win on the board. DarkZero coming off of that major loss to Space Station Gaming, so you know they want to be back with a vengeance for this one. So there's a lot of need for the W, I think, in this next series. Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some teams already today. Beast Coast especially is the main one, jumping up and kind of proving our expectations wrong. I think Soniqs could do a similar thing here today with DarkZero kind of on the ropes after the SSG loss, and I genuinely think Soniqs have been looking like better than last stage for sure. Not enough for a win yet, but certainly better. So I'm excited for this match.
Here's the problem. If the Soniqs aren't able to get a win here, regardless of what form factor it happens in, there's going to be enough competition in the ranks just above them that I don't think they're going to be able to qualify for Berlin. And I'm saying that on week 3. I know it's ludicrous, but think about how close the field's already been. Xset, OXG, TSM, Parabellum's making a run, DarkZero's right there in 5th place, and SSG couldn't get any points today, which means they're back in 6th. And all of them have had good competitive series over all the games they've played thus far. But if we're talking about the Soniqs, for their own sake, you're probably going to be completely out of major contention if you can't do something, at least scrape by 1 point in this game, because so far you don't have any.
You know, I agree. It is early to say something like that, but I don't think it's unreasonable. We might be proven wrong, for sure, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. With
that never happens. I'm never incorrect.
We'll see that.
Don't bring up my prediction.
I'm not used to that feeling either. Let's talk about DarkZero, though. DarkZero, obviously the big winners in Charlotte. This stage, though, they are 1-1. And I think going into that Space Station game, we were saying it was really difficult to pick. We didn't know which way it was going to go. So Space Station winning that wasn't necessarily a surprise per se, but the way they won it was shocking. 7-2. DarkZero just looked totally outplayed in that map.
It was difficult to predict. We all ended up picking DarkZero anyways, and we were all wrong.
The coin,
Yeah, I mean, but that's what happens, right? When the major champions come to play, you typically expect them to do well. I thought in that game against Space Station, SSG really read them well. DarkZero were playing a lot of the same strats and a lot of the same takes that they were playing in the major grand finals against Astralis, so there was a lot to look back on. It definitely seemed like SSG had done their homework and they read DZ very, very well. I'm hoping today we see a map that DarkZero can flex onto and maybe bring out some new stuff. Obviously, they haven't had a super long break since the major to now, but I hope there's at least 1 or 2 maps in the pool that they've got some new ideas on. They can rock some Azami, they can do some cool stuff maybe with Sens, and we can see some new ideas that DZ can bring to the table.
They still prioritize super quick roam clears. Like, they usually thrive as soon as they get these massive man advantages, which just feels like if you're unable to capitalize on those, then you're doing something wrong. But it feels like they open up those opportunities for themselves a lot before making these side pushes. A lot of these kills in very rapid succession. We did see in that win against Beast Coast, Pambazoo had like a Maru for every site that wasn't thrown. So I feel like in moments there, it's not just relying on an LMG clutch. He's got a very clear-cut reason for why he wants to pick things like that. Sometimes they also are very okay with things like Hyper switching over to an Osa if he's playing more of a flex position, and sometimes they're even okay not bringing a hard breach. I'm specifically talking about how that theme park game went. Those defenses were crisp, their roams were great, they all looked to take advantage of, for some reason, their opponents failing to clear them appropriately because it felt like Beast Coast were doing a really terrible job at doing that. It did not manifest in the same way on that game against Space Station, so it felt like in both those games we got very polar opposites about what DZ's defenses can look like.
Our major MVP, Pamba, also didn't really have the game that we're used to seeing from him in their last playday against SSG. On attack, it didn't feel like he was able to get many of those opening picks. He wasn't the guy that was storming through the building and finding all those early frags. That we know him to do so well. He was getting shut down quite a bit on the roam game from Space Station, so I'm hoping he has a bit of a better game today. Obviously, he will be the one rocking that LMG as he loves to do so I hope today that can sing and he can get some more frags on the roamers of SQ.
You know, they're one of the teams right now, too, that has the most tape out there for people to study. And that's
100%.
Something we don't talk about as much, where it's like DarkZero's style, how they approach the game, is already fairly well known, but you add on top of that you have all the Charlotte Major footage to look at. Like, a lot of teams, I think, are going to be more prepared against DarkZero if they've got a good, back office to study that than other teams, right?
100%. I mean, when you're the major champions, everybody looks to you.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about Soniqs, a team that no doubt is well-researched and well-read on DarkZero, but they have not been able to quite get wins themselves yet this stage. A team that's sort of, again, they looked better at the end of stage one. You said, Jesse, that they look better this stage as well. I think that's true, but it feels like there's a long way to go yet.
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's a high bar, right? I think the end of beginning of last stage, they were really, really atrociously bad. Like, they were struggling on a lot of different fronts. I think the games that we've seen so far from Soniqs have been significantly better than that. I don't anticipate we're going to see Soniqs as far down on the leaderboard as we saw them in stage one. Whether they're a top 4 potential team is very much still a question.
They keep up that consistency with the way they attack. We called it the super protection detail. That's still very much the way that they play. It's objective oriented. It's about keeping as many people alive as possible when you execute. And that feels like a very, very common trend for these guys overall.
Generally, I don't think things are as bad as they look for Soniqs, given the fact that they've taken 2 losses so far. You talked about the protection squad, and I think they've been doing pretty well so far. Rex and Kansan and Grixter, the 3 core players of this team, are all at least even, 2 of them positive overall. I think Kansan had some really big moments in the first playday that we saw from him. He had some fantastic times. Grixter, I thought his nades were really solid, and it got them a lot of advantages when they were pushing against TSM. Rexon, I think, has been fine as well. Maybe you want to see a little bit more from him, but he is a very flexible player that fills a lot of different roles for the Soniqs, so I think he can definitely depend map to map kind of what he's playing. And then Yeti and Super, they are kind of your classic support players. Yeti is definitely a lot more flexible, but still, I don't think these are the players that you're expecting to pop off from the Soniqs. So overall, I think it's been okay. Probably the biggest stat that worries me is Yeti going 0-7 on entry so far.
Right.
That is the worst in the league heading into this playday, so I'm hoping that can stop.
There is one rule change for Soniqs. If for some reason this wasn't something you could figure out, Super's not playing smoke anymore. He's off of the anchor position. The man is now playing in some roam spots or some death spots, not necessarily with the expectation of being able to win the fights that he's in, but you're playing in an area that you're supposed to hold down and just waste time for as long as possible, even if it means you're not winning the fight. What that's doing is freeing Kansan up to be the one who always plays anchor. We've talked about his clutch potential so many times before, and he showcased that on several maps to a point where now, if he's playing a mute, if sometimes he rocks a smoke, or most commonly a maestro, Kansan will be the one on site instead of Super trying to wait for the execute to come through, because if you give him enough time to stay alive, he's going to find a way to make the most of it. So that man on your screen right there, if he's still up, there's no way the Soniqs are out of the round just yet.
Do you think Super shaving his beard, he's freed his face in a way? Do you feel like that's freed him to explore other, operator picks that he might not have thought of?
Sam said the exact same thing last week, and I still think you're both crazy.
No, I think that's a good analogy. I mean, Super has opened up his playstyle a little bit more. Yeah. He's opening it up, maybe the pores on his face to new ideas. I like it. No, I think that's great.
Yeah. He's feeling fresh. I'm sure he's got he puts on the toner and the lotion in the morning. He wants to feel great,
No,
Yeah.
fresh as an EUL.
If you aren't following a good skincare regimen, you're doing life wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm just telling you. It feels great.
That's how it works.
That's right. Well, on that note, let's see what map we're playing on going into this this series here. No cafe, no skyscraper to start things off.
Yeah, again, DarkZero and Skyscraper never feel like they're ever going to get along. That's one that they've not tried since the 3 new maps got put into the pool. And then Cafe again for the Soniqs is something we'll never see them play. So both of these 2 to begin are very standard fare. Next couple of bands will tell a bit of a different story. Honestly, it feels like DZ has a little bit of not new map syndrome, but they'd rather improve on what they already know from existing maps in the pool as opposed to worrying about adapting to the other ones. Soniqs theme park, something that they've literally never tried as well since that got reintroduced. So let's just take all of the new ones off the board and move into more familiar territory. Clubhouse for DarkZero. I remember back when they tried playing this against XSET, and that was almost the catalyst of them getting to the major in the first place. Lost that game, but it feels like they've been able to shore it up a little bit more, but they don't want to play it against the Soniqs. And then we move into Bank, which is again something that we've seen Soniqs play only like very sparingly. They started out this stage on it and gave that like a good old college try, and look at where that landed them. Nothing.
Villa, Oregon, and Chalet. You've got to imagine Chalet will be the pick, but it's actually not. Soniqs are going to ban out the Chalet in favor of an Oregon. That is a curveball. Chalet, I have written down as Soniqs' favorite map. They played it lots last year. They played it the most in stage 1. So they do tend to go here a lot, but I guess changing the script today, they're going to go Oregon instead. This is a map they're on a 3-game losing streak on. They played it pretty often in SI where they didn't find great success, and then they came back home, lost it back-to-back both to Exit and Beast Coast. 7-0, 7-2 last stage. That is not a super strong record, but I'm sure they've been practicing in the back line.
I mean, to be fair, we've known the Soniqs have had struggles there. I mean, they ran right into a very promising upcoming Exet team on this map back when they got 7-0 on it before. The fact that they're not going to Chalet doesn't shock me too much because this is also a map that DZ have shown proficiency on 3 out of 4 over the past 3 months. Is a nice stat line to hold on to, but is that something that the Soniqs are actually going to like reverse engineer the tape, so to speak, and get into it?
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, it's time to put all of that preparation into practice for not just the players in the arena, but also for us here in terms of predictions. So it's time first to send it over to our casters to see what they have to say. It's going to be Intero. And who's that? We got Lynx filling in for Pengu today. How you doing?
Honestly, I'm pretty good, not gonna lie. I mean, not really much more than that. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm happy to be here.
All right, are you ready to predict though? Because I believe we're gonna apply your predictions to Pengu's. That's what I would prefer to do.
I mean, you kind of put a lot of pressure on me with that one. I'm not gonna lie.
Yep, that's
Parker,
the idea.
I kind of don't want to predict for, one of the greatest players in the world, but if I'm being honest, I predicted DZ initially with the map at Oregon. I'm feeling SQ. I'm feeling Soniqs.
Really? Wow. Changing it to Soniqs. You know, the thing is Pengu might have been a great player, obviously, but he hasn't always been the best predictor, so you don't need to feel too much pressure there.
Parker looks like such a proud stepdad right now. It's not even funny.
Pengu is beating all of us there.
Yeah.
Lynx is my son. Brimstone and I have adopted Lynx as our child. Brimstone, of course, the NACL host. He and I have adopted Lynx as our child. And I did want to point out, because nobody else has, I'd be remiss to ignore it, that you have a 69% win rate.
There you go.
So don't screw it up.
What does that mean?
So don't screw it up. I mean, it's a funny number. What can I say?
It is a funny number.
Nice in chat, please. Thank you.
It's a funny number. I want to see those nices flooding in.
Sure
I honestly think it's going to be DarkZero myself. I think it could honestly cut both ways, especially now that we're going to Oregon. But the Soniqs, like, there's some deficiencies there. Super shaved off his beard. He gets a charm in the game. He shaves off his beard. What's happening here? So I'm going to go with DarkZero. I think they're going to have a bounce back after a disappointing second play day last week.
All right, so the casting desk split, 1 DarkZero,
House divided.
1 Soniqs. Casters divided.
Not Stan.
Friction within the family, as it were. But we'll catch back up with our 2 casters in a little bit. Now it's time to find out what the analysts have to say about their predictions.
It wouldn't be a true father-son relationship if the son wasn't rebelling against the father.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. You're not the boss of me.
True.
Well, what's the prediction going to be? What do you got, Jacob?
As far as I'm concerned, I'll still give it to DZ. I think the benefits that we saw to the Soniqs gameplay from the past 2 play days is still something that they can't contain because they've not activated the roam nearly as much. It feels like that makes or breaks too many rounds for them, and Yeti has yet to get going. That stat that you mentioned is primarily concerning, especially given that's most of Yeti's bread and butter, and if he can't get activated, and if somehow DarkZero play how they did in Playday 1, not in Playday 2, then it should go to the current major champs.
My worry is that in Playday 2, DarkZero played a map they played a lot before. SSG bot reviewed them and beat them badly. Now we're going to a map that, once again, DarkZero played a lot of Oregon in the past. I don't know if DZ were expecting to go to this map either. I think Soniqs threw a curveball at the end of that map ban phase, which means they might not have a whole lot of new stuff prepped. I know Soniqs are a team that can do that preparation work, so I'm going to pick SQ here. I'm going to go for the curveball pick. Go with my boy Lynx.
All right.
Do it.
All
Shove
right.
him off the stage.
I like it. So we had the analysts and the casters divided earlier. Now we've got division within the ranks of the analysts and the casters as well. Let's find out what the force of chance has to say. It's going to be heads, DarkZero, and tails will be Soniqs. Coin says heads again. It's like it's been like only heads today. I think DarkZero
Only you
is the
know.
pick for the coin. It's been up and down.
And now can the super stance
it's
bring
random.
us to dead even 3-3 for the predictions?
Yeah, who knows?
see.
You know the coin picked tails every single time on day 1 last week?
Did it really?
I was going back and looking at stats. Yeah, it's eerie.
You were looking at coin
That's not supposed to be
stats?
possible. That's not supposed to be possible. Oh, well, somebody's got to record them. Anyway, the community. Let's see what you have to say as far as your prediction goes. Now,
what I thought.
they're going to go DarkZero. All right, we know there's some Sonic.
The people know what's up.
DZ,
You two are insane.
Twitter poll goes to DZ. And we've got a community poll question as well to consider before we get into the series. It's going to be, who's older, Canadian or Super?
That's a good question.
That's just a trivia question. That's not even an opinion
No, because Super's age is, well, he's 14 officially. No, actually, it's not really posted anymore. It's not public, so that is
true.
Is his birthday
I know
like
what the
a
answer
leap year
is.
or something?
Production's telling me it is public, so
It's not.
they're telling me
not
it's
public.
not public. I told you, yeah.
They're lying to you.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He's 14 though.
All right, there you go. I mean, he certainly looks it after shaving the beard. So, something to keep in mind as we go to a quick break. And when we return, things get underway between DarkZero and Soniqs. Who grabs the win? Find out in just a few here on Rainbow Six North American League.
Super, and this is the NAL.
Well, we're just over the halfway point here in the North American League, and we've got an exciting matchup between the defending major champions of DarkZero versus the former NAL champions. These two teams, and former is correct, they are both technically former.
That's true.
Because the major is not ongoing, neither is that year of NAL. The Soniqs famously defeated DarkZero in the NAL finals in this exact room, well, for us casting, last year, and guess what? Didn't matter. Now DarkZero looks to be the better team, but the Soniqs have had a pretty bad start so far.
Yeah, I mean, bad start. Better than they started last stage, though.
True.
I mean, so comparatively speaking, it is much better, but DZ especially coming off that very dramatic loss to SSG. And I don't think, sure, major champs, but losing to SSG in the NAL, a lot of teams have done that. DZ especially has done that, but a 7-2 loss to SSG was definitely something that I don't think anybody who predicted SSG was going to expect to be that dramatic. So it's fitting going into this stage that two teams who have not had the best time so far, especially last playday, they get to duke it out and see who takes the lead.
I mean, Mirage obviously were playing under very odd circumstances back in playday number 1, but I don't know. Or rather, sorry, wrong team.
That's fine.
That's fine. I have the wrong information in front of me. Whatever, doesn't really matter. We'll talk about it when we get into this matchup. We're on Oregon. It was talked about by the desk that this is a map that maybe DZ were surprised that Soniqs took them to. You might recall last year Soniqs went through that weird rotation where they only played Oregon and then they only played Clubhouse and they only played Console and they were only playing Chalet and they didn't really have a huge map pool. And Soniqs were mighty fine on this map. Maybe not as strong as they used to be. Is that something that DarkZero might be excited by? as we get underway with the operator ban phase, by the way?
I think it is something they might be excited by, maybe taking advantage of SQ, adjusting their map pool, letting certain maps drop out. They think, okay, we're going to catch them off guard here. But at the same time, to go back to Playday 2, Border was a map that I know I saw Fresh tweet about it on Twitter, and I talked about it with some of my friends who watched the game. Border was a map that we were surprised to see DZ go to, so I would not be shocked following that previous loss that this might be a map that maybe SQ got over them, of course, at least for the ban so far. Definitely something that DZ on Oregon as well aren't going to be too surprised by. I mean, Flores coming out from SQ, just a very common ban on Oregon, a linear map, then following up with Thatcher Valkyrie. The map ban might be a surprise for DZ, who knows, but certainly the out bans have not been.
Both teams that are playing right now are quite well versed in their opponents. They're both going to be counter-stratting and doing all their homework.
Of course.
In the background. Soniqs obviously have that coaching staff that involves Joe Bro as their analyst. Goddess, the former competitor, she used to play for Soniqs. She's joined them as their head coach. DarkZero, of course, has Mint behind the bench, and I can't recall if Grant is still doing analyst work or if he's been moved off of that, but he still does some analysis on Twitter, including compilations of the All of Canadians 1vx's that were put out the other day.
Yeah, Grant, I know Grant got moved to content a little while back, but he still got some of those, wonky statistics of very specific niche things that, to be fair, every time I see, I am always intrigued, and I do always click on them, so he does have a pretty good formula going. But DZ do have a very extensive support staff, and of course Soniqs also have their own support staff as well. How will this influence going into today? First site we have up, going to basement on Oregon. And for SQ right now, of course, we saw that Azami ban coming out as well. Given the lineup they're running, we have the Smoke, Jaeger, Wamai, Malusi, Warden. It looks like they're going to be sticking pretty close to the site. Doubt they're going to be moving too far off of this with the lineup we have running, except maybe, Super playing on backstairs for a little bit.
I was going to say, you're probably going to have the Jaeger playing over by Pillar, which will be the main entry point from Blue if you can't open up the walls. No Flores, which is an unsurprising ban for Soniqs, because there was that hilarious clip where Super was defending Elbow, and it was just Rotero drone after Rotero drone were thrown his way from stage number 1. And, well, he didn't hit a single one of them, I don't think. And I remember Nick just roasting him alive for that small deficiency. As I said, there's some deficiencies here in Soniqs' game. You were talking about roaming, by the way, and it was Rexon a little bit off-site as we get underway with round number 1. No Azami means that, well, the play around the actual bomb site is going to be a lot easier for the attackers. Of course, Azami has seen her ban rate continue to increase. We had one good play day where she had some prominence in terms of pick rate, but now teams are just opting to remove her. Sens is also available, but they haven't been played all that much. You saw Sens a couple times in the Challenger League this past weekend, but very limited numbers in terms of the NAL, EUL, and APAC.
Yeah, Sens has not had nearly as much prolific play as we have seen Azami in Pro League, and one of the things that you always have to consider is, okay, if we take an Azami off the board, that means we could leave a Valkyrie up. That's a very powerful operator. Of course, she's up right now, and Soniqs are opting not to play her, but that's mainly because of the type of hold they're going for, trying to stick very close to home. See a couple players playing aggressively on freezer stairs at the moment. Another common position, go for the little totem pole. 2 people peeking at the bottom of the stairs, and if somebody pushes in without a drone, you can get an easy pick. But DZ right now, very focused on opening up main and meeting. No freezer focus at the moment.
No freezer focus and no eyes towards Blue just yet. Most of DZ's forces on that main floor getting the job done, opening up with all of their hard destruction. They've got a Maverick and a Hibana to carry those duties halfway through the round, and there's been no real action at all. Rexon saw some bullets fly through the window first 20 seconds of play, but other than that, it's been all quiet for Soniqs as they bunker down on the bomb site.
Yeah, but this is where DZ really need to focus where they want to go with this take. I was about to say if they go for freezer, they're going to have to focus on that Warden, but we see 3 players all of a sudden just hop over to bunker right now. Eclipse and Panba and NJR, all 3 of them sitting outside that double door right now. So it seems to be pretty clear that DZ, with a minute left, have a pretty good idea where they want to push this from, but still clearing out Pillar and Bunker. They need to do that, and they're running out of time.
There's the smoke to go in, an Adrenal Surge as there's extra damage taken from Pamba Zoo. Back tower stairs. Super starts things off. 1 kill is all he's going to get before he's traded out by the Pamba party. But the kill feed turning a very nice shade of orange. Soniqs dominating all across the way. A kill from Eclipse after the down early on in the midst of smoke. Narrowly avoiding more damage, but he's pinned down just by this pillar. He can head back to Blue. 30 seconds left to find the 3 players from Soniqs. Things don't look great for DarkZero after they decide to waltz on in with about a minute on the clock, and they get met toe-to-toe with Soniqs, and Soniqs coming out ahead most of the time. Now it's Eclipse with a shotgun in the corner of Kansan, and Kansan wins that for round number 1, breaking in favor of Soniqs.
Yeah, so right there, DZ spent, a good minute and a half, 2 minutes just deciding where they want to push, and that's totally fine for Oregon, especially if the defense isn't putting any obstacles in your way on the middle floor. Take that time, drone some things out, open up all your options, open up those hatches, take as long as you want, of course, within reason. But then all of a sudden we see a very quick rotation down to the bunker doorway outside, and then, as you said, it just seemed they kind of rushed in. They didn't destroy, or it took a while. They did destroy the shield inside of Elbow, but I don't even think they did either. And pillar control was still in the control of the defense, and they seemed to try to have somebody move down back tower stairs to deal with that. But by the time everyone ran in, I don't know if it was a miscommunication or if it just was poor planning, but SQ was more than ready for it.
I mean, there was extensive droning from DarkZero as well. They would have known that there was nobody off site. It was a pretty typical play by the defense of Soniqs. You had somebody over towards Pillar, you had 2 in the actual bomb site, you had 1 watching Freezer, the Warden was floating inside of
normal
Laundry.
Angles.
Very normal angles, exactly. And I wonder if they were, maybe Soniqs were expecting Ying or expecting another operator with flash and heavy utility to come in and clear. Ying is not banned, by the way, which is not exactly always notable, but on a map like Oregon, with teams like DarkZero and SSG in particular, both of them really like to bring Ying. Soniqs do as well. Super will either sit on Buck or Ying. The fact that there's no Ying ban means that for the second round in a row, DZ are not taking advantage of an operator who is exceedingly strong in this meta. Soniqs were prepared for it, by the way. They're not so much this time around, no Warden being brought. So if there was that explosiveness, if there was that flashbang, I guess, cocktail on the board, Soniqs would be ill-prepared for it. The late pick, by the way, with Canadian was onto that Nook, another critical operator here, and that's where DZ stands.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We're not saying the Ying, but we are saying the Nook, another operator who, more so than Ying, has started creeping into the meta over the past year and has definitely even received quite a bit of bans in the NAL as well. So I'm interested to see where Canadian opts to just lurk around. He's over by that bunker double door right now. Wouldn't be surprised if in the mid-round he goes to solo clear any defenders down below or just to acquire that map control. There is someone on Freezer stairs at the moment that he will have to worry about. That's Yeti on the Goyo, but more than likely Yeti is fully anticipating that someone, probably Canadian, because he loves to go on this solo clear down in the basement, or might be coming after him.
And Nook is an operator that's played by multiple people on DarkZero as well. Canadian will be on Flex, at least for this round, but don't be too surprised to see potentially NJR or Pambazoo on it as well. That flank from Yeti will need to get back to the bomb site at some point. We're about halfway through round number 2, and it's a double dorms defense. So not uncommon to see a Nitro cell played operator lurking below, especially knowing that default plant is going to be by the bottom of white stairs. If you can hang on to that as the defense, you're in great position to thwart a push from big window, a push towards bunks, even a rotate into the main dorms area. And Canadian, just a missed opportunity, but he ends up out-dueling Super. It doesn't matter who's younger or who's older. In that particular engagement, Canadian is better. Now it's Yeti on the flank, a bit belated with a grenade in hand, and the second for Canadian, he'll secure the down on Kansan. But he's going to look the wrong way. Yeti fires a bit too early, and now we'll see what they can do in this firefight. Head of Canadian spotted, Yeti can't control the vector, and he has to get out of there as he's basically out of munition. A nice shot onto Hyper. The backup for Canadian does not arrive. Nitro cell on in. Damage done to NJR. This action is happening very, very quickly, Carter. And we've seen Kansan get picked back up in the meantime.
Yeah, Soniqs have been able to take this time and start consolidating on the top floor and awaiting DZ's execute. So despite the fact that Canadian took really both Super and Yeti off guard, though he only got away with one of those kills, Yeti has done a great job stalling out the entirety of DZ's attack, even though their focus is on that top floor. It is a Dorm's defense. Rexon playing close on the breach right now, waiting for the push up right. Excellent shot by Yeti. Cuts down NJR at the bottom of white stairs, but there's one player there to still keep that facet of the push alive. It's Canadian to get the next kill. Finally, Eclipse goes on in. Rexon's here. He's been undroned. They're not even aware of his position. A second form potentially, though Pambazoo plays a great job dodging behind that shield, but only 3 seconds. Grixer has to land one singular shot to deny this defense or to get down Panba on the cover. 1 HP. No, he can't even land it. Single fire DMR getting the best of Grixer in this situation as DZ get their first round on the board.
Really sloppy end there. Rexon was in such a good spot, and DZ had spent, again for the second round, an extensive amount of time droning out, but they were so focused on the parts of the map where they wanted to get that diffuser down that they didn't think what could be waiting for them inside of Closet. It's a bit of an unorthodox spot for Rexon to play off of. We don't usually see teams open up one wall in Closet and then play off of it. Most teams like that hard anchor style of defense where they seal up the wall, leave down a Kaid Electroclaw, maybe Bandit Batteries, maybe a Mute Jammer, what have you, maybe put some Surya Gates on it, and then play farther back inside of Attic. But because DZ did not favor a closet push, it allowed Soniqs to play very freely off of that, and Rexon was in a very bad spot if DZ had have tried to go for the closet, but he didn't. And because of that, and because there was only 30 seconds left, and DarkZero had not effectively droned it out, in part maybe because of the Mute Jammer that had been put down by Soniqs, it created this huge blind spot in DZ's execute. And were it not for the fact that Panda is just an extremely skilled player who can instinctively win gunfights even at a disadvantage, that is a lost round for DarkZero, but they turn it around. Grixer misses his shots onto the coverage. Maybe could have out-dueled Canadian after the post plan, but either way, it doesn't matter because he isn't able to get a single kill.
But even going into this round, I think Soniqs have a very good lesson to learn, which is if you're able to make a flank like that work, even if Yeti doesn't get a kill, if you're still able to cause that indecision, you can get close to a very winnable position against DZ, because Panabazoo, he was sitting inside a trophy. He could have watched that bedroom angle, but because they were concerned about Yeti coming up on the flank, he was watching Armory stairs, and that's what caused that lapse in a position that allowed Rexon to get there. But we see Yeti pushing very aggressively in small tower right now, whereas before, he was starting all the way down in the basement. So one of their key X factors on the flank, I was about to say, if he keeps aggressing this, he might fall, but right now, he might be able to make it back if he get past White Window.
I mean, Yeti is definitely feeling far more confident in this matchup than what we've seen from him through those first two play days. It was highlighted on the desk before we got into the match that Yeti's entry stats are the worst in the North American League. He is just cannon fodder round after round. Not great on defense, even worse on attack. And now Yeti's engagements in that second round were huge. And he was in a position again where in round number one, where he likely would have been, along with Rexon, one of the 2 points of contact for Soniqs. Here in round number 3, it's another double Dorms defense, and Yeti is still playing aggressively off the bomb site. So whether it's just the Soniqs realizing that he might be in a bit of a slump, or Yeti feeling particularly good, they're still using him in a way that could be to the detriment of Soniqs, but so far has worked out.
DZ just have to be careful not to get too tunnel vision, though Canadian now switching to the Buck could provide a very powerful operator that will cause Soniqs to be cautious where they step inside of the site. You can see him on that skeleton key, remodeling so many areas of the floor, but he takes a hell of a lot of damage on that attic rotate. Yeti now coming in for the flank, but sniped by NJR down below. Rexon is also there with a duo roam, but Panba is more than aware of that, albeit a little too late. Still gives the man advantage to DZ.
And it's immediately traded out, but again, Yeti, that statistic is not great. He dies early on, just as we were talking about it. So unfortunately for Yeti, you waste time, and again, roamers are not always tasked with getting kills. This is a big misconception in the game that when you play your aggressive roamer roles, you know, you'll think of a Vigil, you'll think of an Alibi, an Ella, a Jaeger, which are your prototypical roamers, including ranked, and most importantly in ranked. The average person thinks that your goal is to trade out. It's not necessarily. It's kill utility, kill time, kill drones, set up the rest of your team to succeed.
And so far, Soniqs have been doing a good job at killing that time. Only 30 seconds left now, doing a little bit more damage to the drones, but really it has been that time wasting that has been the big plus for Soniqs in this round so far. And DZ right now seem just relegated to pushing through angles with still plenty of Soniqs members alive.
Eclipse taking a lot of damage, but there's a bit more staying power from the Adrenal Surge of Panbazoo. Hyper at the top of White Stairs, sees Super but can't do anything about it, finally gets it, but he's lost his whole team in the process and loses his life to boot. Again, DZ having problems getting into the bomb site at the last possible second on these executes. The clock was very different back in round number 1, but DZ stormed the gates and they got gunned down. Round number 2, they stormed the gates and they came out 50-50 again because of Panbazoo. Round number 3, they stormed the gates, Soniqs again, like in round number 1, eat them alive. And there's only a single kill that comes out for DZ. And again, is this poor droning, even though they're spending all of this time? Is this bad intel work for DarkZero? Because Soniqs are capitalizing on every single engagement, on every single push that we've seen from DarkZero. Even if DZ did come out in round number 2, it's still not a great statistic for them.
No, it really isn't. And even there for DZ, we had 2 players just hopping through big window, and they had somebody on White Stairs to try to take down either, I believe it was Kansan or Super, it was a Smoke and a Jaeger, I believe, but try and deny those players who were looking at the big window, and they weren't able to get the kill until it was already a 3v1.
Oh, hold on a second here. 48% of you think that Canadian is older than Super. I know the answer to this question. It's not up for debate. Super is older. He is objectively older. How do 48% of you... Oh my goodness, how do you get it wrong? How young do you think Super is?
Honestly, I think him shaving the beard, it's fooled a lot of people. I think it has.
I don't get it. People are saying this.
Give him credit.
Whatever. He's not.
He's the pinnacle of youth right now.
Super is at least twice that age. At minimum.
But he looks half of it.
Okay. He looks 14. No, he doesn't. Anyway.
And like 17.
I digress. Soniqs coming out ahead on their second attempt on the Dorm's bomb site. Because they went to Laundry back in round number 1, they have another opportunity to hang on to this bomb site a second time. Will be a nice feather in their cap. First interaction happens with Soniqs coming out ahead, and then again they're eating DZ alive. Both Kansan and Yeti with these first 2 kills. Yeti padding those stats again, trying to trade off of that previous round where he was the first casualty. He's involved in the first bit of action, but he comes out on top. We're only 50 seconds into this round, and already it's a 5v3 for the Soniqs.
And also, important thing to note, well, of course, DZ are bringing 6 nades. They were bringing 4 operators that could have brought nades each, but Pambazu is currently running flashes on Finka. But because we lost that Sledge and that Yana, that is 2/3 of DZ's nade supply gone. And what do you have on the defense? You have a deployable shield, you have some bulletproof cameras, and specifically those Banshees, one of which was the death of NJR as he went in to peek those freezer stairs. So a lot of the utility you had to deal with some of these gadgets that SQ are bringing out, not as much, because Grixer is actually running a C4 instead of a shield on Warden, but still, a lot of that utility you could have used to destroy these bulletproof gadgets, they're no longer on the board.
We've been seeing a couple flashes be brought by some of these grenade-heavy operator lineups just so you can burn through the utility. I mean, if you bring 8 grenades, let's say, and then you bring breaches or a hard breach gadget, or even 3 flashes on the 5th operator, and if you have a Wamai up, if you have an Aruni up, if you have a Jaeger up, or even you see 2 of them being ran, then you're going to be in trouble, and those nades are not going to hit their mark. There's more blood for the Blood God right now. Pambazu inside a freezer attempts a pick onto Grixer. Grixer doesn't lose a single point of HP. In fact, everybody on Soniqs quite healthy. There's another from Grixer, a beautiful shot. Again, I always am perplexed as to how little play we see out of this Warden. Why? Because he's got a gun with virtually 0 recoil, and he's got an he's got not an ACOG, but a 1.5. He's not the one credited with the kill, by the way. It's a twitchy shot that comes in from the Wamai on Soniqs. But either way, they pick up their 3rd round. Right now, this is a very defender-heavy Oregon, and similar things from DarkZero there. Again, not really knowing where SQ is. Poor drone work, or just a tip of the hat to Soniqs for the way that they're using those mute jammers.
Well, definitely also a tip of the hat to Grixer right there, just able to play that position very well. It can be, even in a 5v3 that they were in, if you have attackers coming in from Laundry and coming in from Freezer, it can be very difficult to reconcile both of those sides and say, okay, where do I want to allocate my time? Where do I want to allocate my focus? But because 4 nades out of 6 were off the board so early, he can play that position with a lot more freedom. He can feel a lot more emboldened to take fights like that, and Canadian also came in late. The last guy with the nades was the last one alive, and he didn't come down through Laundry until the rest of his teammates were dead, so the utility to clear out that position was dealt with far earlier on in the round by Soniqs. Of course, now going to this tertiary site, hopefully the utility can stay alive for DarkZero here, but if they can't get a win on not just the tertiary site, but specifically kitchen and dining, one of the least played sites on any map, but specifically Oregon as well, it's looking rough for round number 6 later.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Oregon is that when you look at that tertiary site, the 3rd site the teams are going to go to, because both dorms and laundry are locked. So the top floor bomb site, the bottom floor bomb site, not available. But you've got that kitchen being the main component between the two. A lot of teams like that meeting defense. So the fact that you're gambling on kitchen shows to me that Soniqs have a lot of confidence in their defense, and more so, a lack of confidence in DZ's executes.
And one thing we always see, or usually almost always see, with a kitchen dining defense is where Super's position is playing right now. We see some players upstairs, you know, we have Kansan, we have Rexen, but Super playing in small tower, this is a very common position that seems very simple to clear. I mean, there's 2 windows in front of him, you can take small tower control, you should just be able to nade this out. But a lot of the times, we'll see not only players survive that position with the ADSs and, of course, magnets if they're on the board. Here it's just ADSs. We see players able to survive there, and if DZ can't clear that out, depending on what they do, that could be problematic if they want to go small tower side later.
I mean, there might be some theory here as to why this bomb site is showing up. Now, just looking at the North American League, Oregon's 3 times that it's been played. This is now the 4th time that we're seeing it get brought up. Laundry's supply room has been won 88% of the time by the defense. Soniqs won both times. That's perfectly in line with those numbers. Meeting hall and kitchen has been played 6 times, so that's the other bomb site. This is the one that Soniqs are not playing on. It's 0 for 6 for the defenders. Ooh. So that is not exactly a stat line that you want to hang on to. This bomb site in particular has only been played 1 other time in the NAL so far through this stage, and it wasn't won by the defenders. But only 1 time, that's not exactly a big enough sample size. And I mean, it might change right now, because we just hit the halfway point in the round, and Soniqs opened things up with a kill on both Hyper and Canadian.
Yeah, and Soniqs haven't really been seeking out these engagements actively. I mean, we saw like Yeti aggressive in small tower one round, but beyond that, they've been sticking to these extensions, and when DZ go to clear them out, like that right there, even a 50-50 engagement on the bunk bed, Rexen still wins it. Soniqs are simply just winning these fights, even when DZ is the one initiating them. Eclipse, of course, the ultimate initiator right now, the 1v5, gets only 1 kill, takes down Super down inside of security, but he knows there might be another on white stairs with a lengthy pre-fire, does not find Grixer. Soniqs find their 4th round.
And that's the first half in the win column of Soniqs, which is what we come to see on Oregon. Heading into this matchup, it was a 57% success rate for the defenders. So a very lopsided map in terms of the defense. It doesn't quite sniff the results of both Bank or Theme Park, which are both in the 60%. As is Border, it's 67%. Somebody actually talked to me once about how in North America, Border is surprisingly defender-sided. I can't remember exactly who that was and put out some content on his own, but I think he might be sitting next to me. Either way, DZ are right now within the margins of what we expect from an attacking team on Oregon, and yet they are obviously still having some struggles. There's been some big struggles both from NJR and Hyper as well. I think they have 2 kills combined. They're not great, and I like that you pointed out that Soniqs are not looking for these engagements. DarkZero is. DarkZero is trying to take map control. They're trying to press the attack, and they're getting cut down in every single engagement. And those opening kills for Soniqs look great right now. I mean, there's only been 1 round where Soniqs have technically surrendered an unanswered opening pick all the way back in round number 2, the one that DZ ended up winning. And that was just an outward brawl. Other than that, Soniqs have either got the first pick or immediately traded back every single round. DarkZero popped their timeout. They're going to have 1 more round on attack, but I think that the greater issue that they're going to be looking at is what happens when they switch sides. They're going to be doing the favorable side of Oregon.
I would definitely agree, but at least here for round number 6, the final attack, the first attack after DarkZero take that tactical timeout, they get to go to dorms, which is the one site they have won so far, and it was definitely one that could have gone Soniqs' way had just a couple factors gone differently. I mean, in round number 3, it did go Soniqs' way fairly soon after, but it's still the one little ray of hope that DarkZero have had on their side so far. Maybe here, maybe if they focus a little bit more on pushing bedroom instead of just kind of, you know, lazily controlling that trophy side, maybe actively push there, because this white stairs big window play, it was middling in its success in round number 2, and it was a complete failure in round number 3.
Yeah. I mean, we focus a lot, obviously, on kills and the way that these things break, but the utility work from DarkZero has not been really anything worth pointing out either. So
fine,
it's very easy for us to look at, okay, they get the wall open, okay, they've taken white stairs, okay, they've got top of, you know, the top floor, and then they're looking to try and see what they can do down below. But the utility work has not really been that remarkable. DarkZero have not been able to really get started in this matchup, and it honestly looks very similar to what we saw out of them against Space Station. I thought there'd be a bounce-back game here. So far, it looks like I'm wrong. But again, is this just a defender side at Oregon? That's a question that will be answered when we switch sides.
Well, at least for right now, DZ will start pushing on and hope we see them a little bit less lethargic going into this round, as you were talking about. A little bit more energy, hopefully, right now.
Lots of energy, lots of focus.
Yeah, right now, of course, we do see Super down below. He is alone at the moment. This is a ripe opportunity for Hyper to start moving on. I would assume he's dead. I would assume he gets naded here or peeked, but yeah, there we go. He actually dodges it for the time. Nope, he's not dead. Never mind. He's on 1 HP, though. He should be dead here momentarily.
Actually kind of surprised. He must not have a ton of faith in the shotgun. I don't know if they are aware that he's still in this position, because after the Yana nade goes in from Hyper, he's completely peeled off. Either they think they might have got it down, or they think that he might have gotten away. That Nitro Cell will give his position away right now. And Super will head out, look the wrong direction. DarkZero opening up the round. They do it in an all-right style, but there's Grixer to answer back immediately on the Canadian.
I mean, you talked about those opening picks, how at worst, save for 1 round, Soniqs have been trading it out when they lose that opening duel. That's what you want to see. They're keeping it close and taking down that buck, which seemed to be the little difference that DZ were hoping would make the best out of their previous Dorms attack, and now that he's gone, that's a player who could watch the vertical from below, who could watch big window plays, who can't do that anymore.
They're getting a mark onto that Goyo canister from down below. DarkZero will need to do more than this, as they've equalized. They got that opening pick and then immediately lost Canadian. No buck from down below, but they got nades aplenty. NJR taking a ton of damage. Nade from Hyper goes off, does not connect. Kansan follows up on a Panbazoo. Suddenly, DarkZero now trail yet again. And Panbazoo was the difference maker when DarkZero succeeded on this bomb site. So who will step up? Because you need somebody to do that. Grab the reins with 30 seconds remaining. because anybody, honestly, on DarkZero needs to do it. Not a lot of kills for the remaining 3 players on DZ. That might not inspire confidence, and things will get worse as NGR immediately sledges through the door. He's met with the aggression of SQ, and it's Hyper in a 1v3 tussle with 3 players from Soniqs on the top of White Stairs. Not a lot of time and not a lot of hope right now. SQ just dominating DarkZero in this first half, and it looks like Hyper's not even getting engagement. He walks away to try and preserve some modesty in those stats. Do it for Siege GG, as they say. First half in the books, Soniqs coming out with a very lopsided 5-1 scoreline.
And of course, the play from them has been solid. It's not like, DZ are 100% throwing the game. Soniqs definitely look like they have their fundamentals on point. They're playing off of each other. Camden, especially inside of the site, has usually, once the execute comes through, he's usually one of the first people to get a kill and to make DZ's execute even more problematic. But to use a term that Cookies uses a lot in Challenger League, the athleticism on DZ right now, it's just not there.
What the hell does he mean by that? The athleticism. They're sitting at a desk. What is the athleticism?
So, what he means by that...
Cookies, you answer me. But you can answer me.
I'll answer for Cookies, and we'll see if I do it justice. When CJ says the athleticism is not there, DZ aren't getting mobile. They're not getting active. When they're taking these fights, they look like they're going in there half-heartedly. They're not going in there with the confidence that they're going to win it. They just go in, and it seems like they're already worrying that what happens if I lose this, and they're just not going in like they're thinking they're going to win this fight. And that's how a lot of these gunfights have been. And going on to the defense, sure, on Oregon you might have a better time, but take Hyper playing that position inside of Freezer. Remember the confidence that Grixer had when he was swinging that position? If Hyper is playing the same spot, and we see him struggle to even get 1 kill or go 1 for 1, that's alarm bells in my head that this might be over.
Well, the first half is in the books. We're underway now with the Soniqs taking their timeouts and it not doing that much for them. In terms of statistics, Soniqs obviously up 5-1. DarkZero got a diffuser down 1 time, and it was on the round that they triumphed on. That was back in round number 2. In terms of opening duels, Soniqs won or immediately refragged in 5 of the 6 rounds. There was only 1 time where DarkZero had that leg up in terms of man count. That was in round number 2, the one that they won. Soniqs went for a tertiary bomb site, the Dining Kitchen bomb site, and succeeded. So it's now been played twice here in the North American League. 1 win for the attackers, 1 win for the defenders. Very first defense for DarkZero, they're going to opt to go down to the bottom floor in laundry and supply. Soniqs in the first 45 seconds of action, still very deep into the discovery phase, and will drone out. Maybe see if they have the same degree of difficulty that DarkZero had at determining the positions of the Soniqs players.
I mean, DarkZero right now, they aren't playing in any, off positions at the moment. Maybe one is like Hyper is playing over by the laundry double right now, but it's still a minute in. He's got plenty of time to rotate back and maybe take a more default position if they want to. But what can certainly be said is, similar to what SQ did on their defenses on basement, not playing too far out, just playing close to the site right now, not trying to get too aggressive. But even then, we saw Yeti try to go up Freezer Stairs for a little bit, see if anybody was not droning. DZ, they are full turtling at the moment, not giving up even an inch of ground. But Soniqs are probably going to have a pretty good idea where a lot of these players are, and Rexon is already looking for an opening.
And Soniqs' time management has been impeccable so far. DZ, when they attacked Laundry on the very first round, wanted into the bomb site with about 50 seconds or so left. DarkZero now watch Soniqs do something very similar to them. Freezer control already taken by Soniqs. Hatches fully opened up. Utility starting to be worn down now by DarkZero. And it's a very similar Warden in a similar spot for DarkZero. It's Hyper to see all the way towards Freezer, but forced out of his position. There you go for DarkZero. Opening things up. Yeti and Kansan removed from the equation. It's 5 versus 3. And DZ can hang on with Rexon still inside of Freezer. Soniqs not looking as formidable on that opening play as we've seen from them on defense. But again, Oregon defense seems to be a very different beast.
Indeed it does. They still have some useful utility. Final flashbang goes out, but Rexon has a couple smokes that might be able to block off some useful lines of sight, either to push further into Freezer or to push somewhere else. Super's also now rotated to bottom laundry, but with NJR still in long, if he can take down Super, he can turn his full attention to Freezer, and that's game over for DarkZero.
Eclipse has the shotgun pointed in that direction, and he's going to look up, and down goes one. Another lined up 2, but it's Hyper to capitalize, and a flawless denied by Super. So at least 1 kill for Soniqs, but it's impactless at the moment. 15 seconds left means that it's likely to be impactless for the remainder of the round. Super breaking even in terms of stats. You saw his statistics before we got into the matchup. Not particularly strong, but he'll try to bait out a final kill. Does he die, or does he just let the clock hit 0? It's the latter. DarkZero put together a win on the very first defense of theirs. And again, it looks eerily similar to what we saw when DZ was on attack. Attackers push in, they get beaten in gunfights. They have limited utility, they have limited vision. Defense capitalizes and keeps and maintains that lead.
Yeah. My fears aren't completely settled, of course, but that definitely, especially with DZ able to get both opening kills as SQ went in for the execute, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable as we go in for the remaining of these defensive rounds. Just able to play those positions, and even all the utility that was dumped into long that NJR had to deal with, took a lot of damage, but still managed to remain alive, and then even get the second kill after Canadian opened things up. So I'm not completely, over the moon, still cautious about DZ, but that was definitely a round that we needed to see, and hopefully we can see them even have a little bit more energy going into dorms.
Well, the athleticism of DarkZero in that round, significantly better.
Yeah, they were on the treadmill for a little bit, but they're not doing pull-ups yet.
Even if they weren't really moving.
Not getting
it was the defense from DZ was stalwart, and I would say it's reminiscent of that scene from WALL-E. When all of the travelers are in their chairs, very comfortable, very immobile.
Yes.
It's very similar to that. It's just that was the DarkZero defense. They played full turtle.
Yes.
And it worked out very well for them. Again, I am a little surprised, no Ying, even though she remains unbanned. These teams do like to bring a Ying, and we're not seeing it right now. Super plays Buck or Ying with that can opener hard breach quite frequently on this map. Maybe not after things have changed. I don't know, maybe they think the meta obviously works a different way. You now see Super on the Lion instead. The hard breach that's being brought doesn't exist, by the way.
Yeah,
there is not a
real.
single hard breacher here. So Soniqs instead just wanting to go for this pugilistic lineup instead of more sophistication. It's a 4 DarkZero, by the way. Dorm's defense.
Just to get that out there. Of course, the no hard breach play is on Oregon, not gonna lie, it's a little risky. Not even a secondary hard breach gadget on the board.
Pretty surprising.
Yeah, pretty surprising. Even if you want to go for this, obviously, Soniqs are the pinnacle of the lurking play style on attack in North America, especially, bringing that Nook on the board. They're one of the first teams really to start using it a lot more. But no hard breach, definitely a bold move, but if they're able to pick off some of these roamers like Eclipse down below in security with that Nook who's already starting to creep up Z, could go big, but Super down below finds Canadian.
You said picking off one of the roamers down below. It wasn't the player you mentioned, but it was still a member of DarkZero. So Soniqs looking to move to match point, and a first kill is a good position to be in. Eclipse down below inside of security, watching with those mute jammers in play. No hard breach. That means for Soniqs, they need to get one of those nades from below.
Yes.
Get pressure off of one of your main avenues in. If you want to take Attic and jump in through the window, you need to dislodge the player that's going to be sitting over there. And there's one of those nades.
One.
It might not be from down below, but Yeti tosses it in. Dorms is now wide open as NJR falls to that explosive. Eclipse is still down in security with a nitro cell in hand. But if his team's numbers continue to dwindle, he won't be anywhere near as effective. And all of a sudden, Bambazoo's looking in the wrong way, but it becomes a much closer matchup. Eclipse and Hyper bounce back. Rexon and Kansan maybe breaking into the bomb site without the correct information. Eclipse has been down, trying to get back to assist with his teammates, and it puts Hyper, who has suddenly become a more potent force in a 1v3, sustaining a lot of damage, scampering off into Attic and now repositioning through that Dorm's rotate. Diffuser going down, and at the top of White Stairs, it's Grixer to move his team to map point. It's 6-2 in favor of Soniqs.
I gotta say, even though they lost the round, I like what DZ did there in the mid-round. I like seeing Hyper run out of that door, getting aggressive, and just going for some more off-the-wall plays to try to bring that man advantage back. I was worried when we were seeing DZ on attack, they'd be in a 3v5 and they'd just be like, oh, crap, what are we going to do now? But nope, once they're in that 3v5, they start pushing, they actually start getting those kills. Problem is, that was about the only thing, were those two plays individually. I mean, Canadian on attack and defense on Oregon, you can go and look back as far as you can. He is always in the basement at some point in the round. He's either the one solo clearing down below, or he is the one playing there in basement the entirety of the round. So Super goes down as Lion. He knows this without even needing the drone. That Canadian is probably going to be the one in the basement. They get that kill, and then Soniqs just do what they do best. Play Nook, play Grixer, get some nades from positions, and if the nades don't work, you let the guns do the talking. Soniqs just played their game, and DZ fought back a little bit, but really not that much.
If you concede control of Kitchen, there are so few spots that are not going to end up with you doing damage from a nade from below. Time and time again, if you don't put a buck in that position, which obviously Soniqs not running the buck in the previous round, not doing it again as it's another Dorms defense. Instead, you use what we affectionately refer to as those depth charges, those grenades from down below, and suddenly you effectively step on a landmine without knowing it, and you get blown sky high. Now, usually, there's a nade from below that does damage to the player inside of Dorms, but because Eclipse was holding that position for DarkZero, it was Soniqs having to go through the main window, which is where you saw Yeti go with his nade. Another thing, too, just for that downstairs defense, as we are now on Dorms, but one thing that I did want to focus on, no Flores. That means that trying to take blue becomes extremely challenging. If there's an Aruni on the board, Jaeger, and Wamai, all three of those operators are available, so you can bring all three of them together. It means that blue is going to be held in the favor of the defense far more because you lose one of the best assets for the attackers. And that's why that Flores ban is so crucial, and why we saw the teams when they attacked that basement bomb site forego blue control.
Yeah, and both teams have used a different flavor of it. Soniqs prioritized the Jaeger and Wamai more. DZ have focused more on the Wamai and the Aruni, but both of those combinations are probably a result of the Flores ban, though. They're also good individually.
Now we got some subterranean homesick blues going on down here, as you don't need a weatherman to know the way the wind blows, but Canadian is in the basement yet again.
Oh!
And Hyper picking off Super is a good starting point for DarkZero. It's match point for Soniqs. Canadian still down below on that lurk, on that roam. Soniqs will need to figure out his position, and if they can do something to punish him. They will come across these mute jammers now towards the top floor where the bomb site lays, at the halfway point of this round. Similar setup inside of security from DarkZero 2, and here's one of these depth charges, as we referred to it as.
Ooh.
It does a little bit of damage to NJR, but he was just out of reach. Adrenal Surge comes in from Rexon, tops everybody back up. Eclipse in the same spot that we saw before, again down in security. Holding onto a Nitro Cell, very strong position. And if he gets pushed from multiple angles, he is ripe for the picking, and he just can't control the recoil to take out the Nook of Grixer. Maybe a shotgun can do just that. All the while, explosives raining in around him, leaving us in the final minute for Soniqs to find their footing and try to put this match away.
Soniqs have really not found ground so far. I mean, when you lose super early on, you can go clear Canadian in a 5v5, but when you're in a 4v5, do you want to dedicate time, especially with 45 seconds left to clear out Canadian? We saw Grixer moving down there earlier, but Canadian has now moved up the stairs, probably going to go back to the site, and they still haven't cleared out Eclipse either. If DZ or if Soniqs want to go for a white push or a big window play, everything that could go wrong, the security position or Canadian on the roam, they have to push through it.
And DZ is lined up so well. They've got sights at the top of white, they've got Canadian at the top of Armory, and he finds two for the price of one. There it is. A jump in from the big window will be dealt with by Eclipse. Pistol out and sidearm for Canadian, not good enough, but a flawless round as Panbazoo picks up the final kill. That's the coverage that you need to see from DarkZero. Sonic struggled to clear out security. They struggled on the roam. They surrendered that first opening pick, and then they didn't seem to know what to do with that mid-round. And how do you transition to the bomb site? Well, Dorms is a bomb site in this game where if you hang on to it the final 20 seconds, even if you're at a disadvantage in terms of numbers, there are a lot of hard walls that you cannot shoot through. And if you don't bring the appropriate amount of hard breach, even the soft walls become way too much for you to deal with. You've got three main entry points. You're going to try to go up the top of white, you're going to try to go up the top of Armory, or even just through Trophy, through that master doorway, or you're going to go hop through big window. DZ had sights on all of those areas except for Trophy, and they picked right because Soniqs decided to go through the main stairs, which is where Canadian was playing, and he had Pamba for backup.
And also in that initial Dorms attack, especially when you saw Yeti get that nade kill on NGR from big window, they were relying, not entirely, but definitely a lot on having that nade be the deciding factor to start moving in. They had 8 nades that time, and Parker, none of them really hit. None of them really did all that much, unfortunately.
No. We saw some damage being done to NJR a couple times, and I think one of those nades might have been used on Eclipse, but it didn't really do much damage.
No real openings created.
Exactly. Now, one of the operators that I fixated on has finally shown up, and it is the only real authentic hard breacher for Soniqs. Ying
Ironic.
is here, and it's Super playing this role that he's played time and time again with that secondary hard breach gadget. We call it the can opener. It works as kind of like a half, 1/3 of an exothermic charge.
You get a hatch.
You can get a hatch with it, and it's great for hatches. And honestly, with this being a downstairs defense, DZ can go back here. They won it on their very first defense. They're going to hope to try to do the same thing. with this lineup that we see from Soniqs, they're going to want to get the hatches. They need freezer control. Ying's focus is going to be on Pill, on that electrical box near where Panbazoo is playing, but you got to clear out Pillar. I would be very surprised looking at this lineup if Soniqs try to take blue, so it will be yet again another attempt on the bottom floor for the attackers before going blue. That makes it much tougher because you don't have as many avenues into the bomb site. You need freezer control, and you have to flush out the defender playing in that area. No attacker has been able to do that yet.
Yeah.
None of these attacking teams have done it successfully.
I'm also intrigued to see, we see Rexen just quickly moving down Freezer right now, maybe trying to find something over here, but nope, he backs up fairly quickly. I think Hyper was already prepped. No, not with the C4. I just saw him holding something. I was like, what's he holding? It was an electric lock, so he was waiting for somebody to start moving towards that hatch. He's now electrified it, and they have to call Yeti on over to open that one up. So because you have that Cade, Soniqs have to deal with it, but unfortunately they have to spend a little bit of time on these electrified hatches to use that Maverick to open it up. And for the attacks so far, which on both DarkZero and in some cases XQ have struggled to get executes, you know, before the 30-second mark at times, this is one thing you wish you probably didn't have to deal with.
Absolutely. The Kaid here, the pick that we see from Hyper, is obviously very smart. Not that there's ever really a bad time for him as an operator. He's suitable on pretty much every single bomb site, but it just took about 30 to 40 seconds for Soniqs to get those hatches opened up. The can openers have both been used as well from Super, so there you have utility coming out. I was actually wrong about this. It is a blue take, so for the first time, I didn't think it would be. I thought, okay, you look towards the freezer, you look towards that E-box hatch, pillbox, whatever teams call it, and you go from there. Not the case.
Well, I thought that, okay, now I'm reconsidering, because initially I saw, okay, if they're going to go for a bunker or a blue take, maybe they have Rexen smoke elbow, then they push in off the Candelas, but no, now they're moving over towards freezer and laundry. This is completely different. First Candela missed Parker, but they're just rotating with very little time left.
Completely botched. Rexen is covering fire. Nade goes off. No damage is done to him. Checking his corners. First kill for Soniqs. Methodical as they continue to walk in, marching their way towards a victory, and the bodies for DZ hitting the floor. Canadian on a stead by that bomb chassis. Rexen dropped, firing back, but only one kill remains. That's it. Soniqs searching for their very first victory, and they get it. Over DarkZero, 7-3. An impressive showing on a map and on bomb sites that maybe DarkZero wasn't fully prepared for. And the NAL champs, who've had a bit of a slump in Stage 1 and at the start of Stage 2, they get on the board with a big 3 points.
And it's also 2 weeks in a row now, or at least 2 playdays in a row. DarkZero having a 7-2 loss to SSG, but then a 7-3 loss to a recovering Soniqs roster, who admittedly is playing a lot better than they were in Stage 1, so I don't want to take that away from them. But again, some worries for DZ in the first couple playdays. But for that round in particular, by the way, I just have to give credit to Soniqs. I don't know if it was a call or if they just made the decision to rotate, but moving very quickly over to freezer and laundry really maximized the surprise factor that Ying can have. When all of a sudden you hear them marching around bunker, marching around blue, and then you have Candelas flying in from laundry and flying in from freezer, it can be very disorienting for the defense to deal with, and that's kind of what happened to DZ.
Even if one of those Candelas was a complete and utter botch. The championship hangover seems to be very real. Soniqs knew a thing or two about it. TSM obviously after SI. Nip had to deal with it as well. SSG wasn't as strong after they won SI a couple years back, and now it's DarkZero's turn. You win a major, but you don't do the best in the NAL. They find themselves with only 1 victory through 3 playdays. That's it for match number 4. We've got some analysts to break it down, but before we get there, a short break. Sit tight. Don't touch that browser. We'll be right back. Good job.
We have returned here at the Rainbow Six North American League. Doa Jesse Jacob here with you at the desk, and over in Las Vegas is none other than DarkZero from Soniqs, fresh off of their first win of the stage. DarkZero, it's got to feel good, obviously, to get to this point, to get the win. Do you feel like the progress for the team is coming along? Obviously, the win certainly helps a lot with that, but take me sort of through the timeline of how things went last stage, what was done during the offseason, what did you do as a team to get yourself to the point to get the win today?
Coordination and vibes was probably the biggest thing that we struggled with. I mean, during the offseason, it wasn't, who's like washed now, who's bad now. It wasn't like all of a sudden we're just horrible, because, I mean, it wasn't so long after stage 1 started. So I think we just try to like knock down in, just playing together more than anything. I think our teamwork lacked. I think our teamwork has been lacking, and I think we've slowly started to show it to be like a lot more prominent. This last week we just came off a 7-5 and an 8-7, which I think could have gone either way if we just capitalized on little mistakes. But I think it was just our team play more than anything. I think something that we're really strong suit in is how well we play off of each other, and I think obviously when that's lacking in some aspects, it just kind of follows through to the whole team.
Okay, well, it came together today, that's for sure.
DarkZero, I wanted to ask you about the map ban phase, because you guys had the final decision. You had to choose between Chalet and Oregon. You decided to go Oregon instead of Chalet, which is a map that you guys have historically liked quite a bit. Was there something about DarkZero that made you want to pick Oregon against this team? Had you guys been prepping this pretty hard in the backlines?
Yeah, I mean, we knew how they played Oregon. We definitely studied it. It wasn't a surprise that we were going to play Oregon or any of the maps as far as like the bans went. I mean, we had a specific map pool that we were going to play them on, and all those maps we felt equally confident on. I think they almost expected for us to go to Chalet. I think that's why they left it up. I think whether that is that some counter strats against us or whatever it may be, I think even us picking Oregon against them was a little bit of a bluff.
Okay.
I don't think they were expecting that. So, yeah, I mean, Oregon was no surprise to us. I think we were equally confident on Oregon as we were on Chalet. So, and I mean, we showed up. So I'm glad that it went the way that it did.
We've seen the defensive role swap for Super playing more of a roam-centric role as opposed to playing on-site, and Kansan being the one to usually anchor a lot. How is that working for you guys behind the scenes, and what is it freeing up the rest of you to do on defense?
Yeah, so it's interesting you touch up on that, because on defense, every now and then there's like what people call like suicide spots, where it's like no matter what, that player's going to eventually die, whether it's in 30 seconds, a minute and a half, he's just there to burn time. And allowing Seth or Super to play those positions for us allows the other 4 of us to make plays around him, and to basically, like, it's pretty much like he's stuck and our objective is to make plays around him and play together, and like late rounds, it's like always us last alive. And I think it allows the team to excel, because I mean, I think we all work really well against each other, and when Seth is playing those spots and we can just make any play we want around him, it really helps us just play defense the way we want to.
All right, so one more question before I let you go here. Tomorrow the team is playing Oxygen. I'm curious what your thoughts are going into that one, because they're certainly a strong team, but they've looked a little bit more vulnerable of late. So what are you thinking?
I mean, it's just like any other team for us, really. Just because, I mean, they're Oxygen and have the players that they are doesn't mean it's any different from any other team you want to compare it to. We've historically had really good matches against Oxygen, so it should be a good game regardless, but I mean, I'm confident that we'll be able to pull through with the win.
All right. Well, you got the win today. Best of luck in your match tomorrow, and thanks for taking the time to sit down with us.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
See you. All right, well, there you go. Grixer from Soniqs getting the big win over DarkZero. And this is 2 maps in a row now where DarkZero has kind of gotten slammed. 5 rounds in the last 2 matches. It's looking a little bit rough for our Charlotte champs.
Well, I mean, I'm glad Grixer said what he did during that, the question I asked him with the maps, because again, I feel like DarkZero really got read. It felt like Soniqs had done their homework just like SSG did, and DZ were definitely outstratted on this map here of Oregon. So really well done to Soniqs, to Super and their support staff for getting all that intel. And then, as we can see on the stat board as well, playing with that intel fantastically. Every single member on Soniqs, at least even. From SQ, that is a very rare sight.
This feels like a bit of a trend that happens after somebody wins a major or even an SI in some cases. When you become the best, everyone guns for you. Everyone looks at what you did to succeed. And when you're playing in a best of 1 scenario that doesn't allow you to be nearly as flexible as you can in a best of 3 series, that's already kind of put, by default, DZ on the back burner. They're looking for a way to get out of the situation, and they haven't yet, but we're still in best of 1s. This is something that can be corrected, or course corrected, so to speak. It just might come a little bit later in the stage, and I'm curious if this is a DZ team play issue behind the scenes, if they're not confident in their own coordination, or if it's literally a case of them getting read. Remember back when OXG was like the #1 team in stage 1 or 2 or something from last year, and then try to jump to international competition and flounder for a bit? In stage 2, they get read the exact same way DarkZero seems to be, and it takes them a whole stage to kind of get back out of the gutter again, so to speak. That was where it was a little bit different. Last year was a very different scenario for the Rainbow Six scene, but we could see a very near perfect copy of this situation for DarkZero if they're not careful.
It is interesting. We talked about, too, a little bit earlier where DarkZero has the most tape out there as far as people to study. So it makes a lot of sense when you run into those situations. Let's take a look now at a couple rounds in particular. I believe we got 3, 4, and 5 lined up. And this was kind of a lot of similar things where we're going to zero in on, I believe it was a Rome that we were talking about earlier. Yeah,
this is what Jacob was talking about in the interview, how I want to focus on the way that we're seeing Super and Yeti play the Rome. This play in particular, Super is going for some wild swings on the big window, but I actually love it. He's swinging out Hypers on white stairs and JR's on the kid's window. This is such an aggressive position for Super to be playing, but he's got the confidence to make it happen. Downs kit outside a big window. Initially, Soniqs were in a man disadvantage in that situation, but because of that bold play that Super made, they actually pulled it back and won that round. Then we're again highlighting just the roam presence of Yeti and Super. Yeti going huge on this one. Kansan's kind of with him as well on this round. We've got Super down in the basement that time. And then round number 5, again, this is just the impact that they can have, delaying the time. As players on the main 4, you want to be focused on Yeti and Super once again, playing around, able to push over towards that east side of the map. There's the opener from Super, and they've talked about how he's able to play those kind of suicide spots, the Grixer called them, right? In this round, he was initially playing up in small tower, which for a kitchen dining defense, that is exactly what you expect to happen. You expect to die there. But because DarkZero only pushed from the east side of the map, they were pushing from tower, they were pushing to try to clear that top floor. Super recognized that. He got out of that small tower and had an impact elsewhere on the map.
If you wanted any more proof that this is just Super's team, on attack, he's their IGL, he's their support player. It's a protection detail around Super getting the case down. On defense, he's now the one playing these suicide spots, which means every single thing the Soniqs do revolves around one man, and that is Super Seth Hoffman. Yep. How has he done this?
And Reddit wants to cut him.
You know, the thing is that when we talked to him before the year began, I was in Vegas, I got to talk to a lot of players, and I had a conversation with him that we got a lot of interview footage from. And, you know, he was saying, you know, I was thinking about retiring at the end of last year. That's no secret. He was like, maybe it's time to move into that coaching role, to take that big brain and put it behind the players instead of in the map. But with how well NAL went last year, you know, he thought, well, and rightly so, I'll just keep playing. And, you know, it hasn't looked fantastic this year yet, but they're starting to pick it up a little bit now, especially. And today's very encouraging. So, yeah, I definitely think if you're Super, you're not too ready to rush into retirement just yet.
Right, and again, the personal stake involved, they're only saying that they're going to make roster changes if for some reason they don't make this next major. So that's something that they've set for themselves. If this play keeps working and they make the major, they're probably fine for stage 3. If they keep doing this and somehow they fall flat, there will be change coming in the future.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. For now, though, we're going to send it to a quick break, and when we come back, the final map of the day, it's going to be the winless Mirage trying to take on Astralis. It's going to be rough. We'll see if Mirage can pull it off. Don't go anywhere. The NAL returns in just a few.